and welcome to part 4 of the first episode of the Pioneers Conclave. My name is Dhruv Joshi, and in this podcast, Mr. Upamanyu will debunk certain myths and state a few facts about IIM and will tell you what life at IIM is like. Do check out our social media handles for more details. To get in touch with Mr. Upamanyu, do check out our YouTube channel, eSL and Skill Hub Jai Hind College. His social media handles are listed in the description box. Not taking more of your time, let's get straight into the conversation.
So you somewhat answered my next question also, but if you could throw some light on this, it was so there's a myth that IIMs usually comprise of engineers and the non-tech background students they don't. I mean, they feel that they are a little, they don't have an upper hand here. So can you throw some light on this topic?
Yeah, so I would say by and large you're correct. Even though I mentioned IIM Ahmedabad is incredibly diverse, it's still 70% or so engineers. 70 to 80% every batch is engineers, and that has been coming down since I think 2015, 2016. But it's still true. So the Ahmedabad campus is more diverse than the other top tier MBA institutes. So if you're in Bangalore or Calcutta, you'll have more than I think more than 90% are engineers. And yeah, no matter which Indian institute it is, Indian MBA institute, whether it's XLRI, FMS, majority will always be engineers. I think the reason for that has to do with the way the selection process is done. The CAT examination is a fairly quantitative exam, and no doubt engineers have a huge advantage in that. So I personally know my friends in at IMA didn't prepare, like these engineers from IIT Bombay and IIT Delhi. They just didn't have to prepare for the quant section at all. They just went and wrote the exam for the first time, and they're getting 99.99 percentile. And obviously, because they have already done their due diligence, they've done their work when preparing for IIT JEE 4 5 years back, right? So there is an inherent advantage in the way the CAT exam is framed. I don't think that's a bad thing. So I wouldn't complain about that per se, because you do need a transparent and a fairly quantitative metric based process to select students, simply because the competition is so high and there's so much demand to get into these institutes. So you can't do anything about that. How does that So how do you navigate as a non-engineer? As a non-engineer, you have to look at your strengths and not your weaknesses. So your main glaring weakness when preparing for CAT will probably be your quantitative section. And remember, it's not whether you are good at maths or not. It's whether you are better than the 200,000 other people who are giving the exam. So it's all percentile based, right? Your performance is judged against everyone else. So even if your maths is not as strong as someone else, if you are better at giving the exam than someone else, you'll get a higher percentile. So if you're better at identifying which questions to do, which questions to skip, if you're better at identifying your strengths within quantitative aptitude section, you know as a non-engineer, for example, that you're better at arithmetic than the other sections, should only focus majority of your energy on getting the arithmetic questions right. So arithmetic will form, let's say, 9 out of 33 questions in CAT, and you only need to get about 21 to 25 questions correct to get a very, very high percentile. So yeah, all these things you will learn as you prepare for CAT. These are facts that are available online, but you just have to look into what your strengths are. As a non-engineer, your strengths would probably lie in the VARC, the verbal aptitude section, or the DILR, which is data interpretation and logical reasoning sections. So you just have to look into that a little bit. In interviews also, this factor plays a role, but I think interview onwards, there's no inherent advantage for engineers. It all depends on your personality.
Okay, so like I mean, while preparing for your CAT, did you have someone who you were inspired by, or was like a mentor? It can be anyone, your senior, or someone currently at IIM, or it can be just a famous personality who you looked up to, just getting motivation from him or her.
Someone who I look up to. Okay, here's a interesting factoid. My father did IIM Calcutta way back in, I think, 1991. So he's almost 30 batches my senior. So he has lived the IMC life as an alumni for a very long time. All my life, he has been talking about how great IMC as an institute is, and how great the companies that he joined after that have been. Having the guidance from my father was incredibly important. It was something that I still look up to today. I look up to him for guidance and for mentorship. Having a close person in your family who has been through this, even if it's almost 30 years back, from a motivational level, really helps you. So he wasn't able to help me much in terms of preparation because the exam has changed so much in the last 30 years, right? But preparation help is available online if you just look for it. So I would focus more on reaching out to people who can help you understand whether MBA aligns with your own personal goals. Again, if you are not motivated towards doing an MBA, then it's very hard to put in the hours and really trudge through CAT preparation, because it is a fairly grueling process. So you have to have that basic level motivation.
So you were talking about how your dad used to tell you how his experience at IIMC was. I'm sure he might be telling you how stuff at IIMC happens, and what all experiences he's had in the past. While preparing for your CAT, you might be having certain expectations from how IIM would be like, or how would you want your college to look like, or like your experience basically. So when you eventually got into IIMA, how was it different from what you expected it to be?
So the things I knew were that IIMA is extremely academic focused, and the academic rigor in that institute is very, very high. These were just the things that I heard before getting into, or before understanding what these institutes are like. I would say when I arrived at IIM Ahmedabad, I was happy that I made the right decision, because to me, this is the ultimate level of MBA institute. You can't really top this in the country. And I think IIMA competes with some of the best universities abroad and comes out favorably. So the academic thing is entirely true, right? There's almost no falsehood in that. So if you read about that anywhere, it's 100% true. There is 100% attendance. Every class, if it starts at 8:45, you have to be there at 8:44:59. And if you're 1 second late, you're out. The doors are closed and you don't get to attend. And there is 100% attendance policy. So if you miss that class, I mean, you're on your own, right? No one really misses classes. There's no culture of missing academic classes, or not engaging with the profs. The culture is very, very professional, very uh, focused on actually learning what the subjects are about. So you'll regularly find profs and students meeting up after class in the professor's office, sometimes even their house, to catch up on some of the topics that they teach. A lot of students do projects with the professors. Students do projects on their own together. A lot of students start their own startup and approach CIIE, which is the internal startup incubator, one of the best in the country. So a lot of things going on. If you're interested in business and you want to make a career in almost any field in within corporate, then IIMA is the place to be.
Absolutely, that is something very important. Like, you need to know your goals, and at the end of the day, you're going there to learn something and be independent. So that's what the institute perfectly
Yeah.
imbibes.
Hello